Hi, I thought I'd talk today about what specifically goes on in a teenage brain. After all, to many of us, those of us who've raised teenagers or worked with teenagers, it can be quite a mystery, to be fair. And likewise for the teenager, it can also feel mysterious. They don't feel like themselves anymore. They have much bigger reactions to things. They keep falling out with their parents and carers, people at school, and it doesn't feel very good. It's a minefield for them and a minefield for those around them quite often. So luckily, nowadays, we have the benefit of the last 20 years or so research into what's going on in our brains. Now, we still only know a very, very tiny bit of what's going on, but we know a lot more than we did, which to me is really exciting. Because when we know what's going on in our brains, it can make it much easier to be kind, compassionate, either to ourselves or maybe to our teenager. So I have a brain. Well, I have two brains. I have this brain, I have this brain. And as we can see, there's different areas of the brain. And what we need to think about is, so what's going on in the teenage brain? Because once we get that, it is, trust me, a lot easier to find your way through the whole, sometimes quite tricky old path with raising a teenager. When children come into the world, their brain cells are not very connected. A few have started pre-birth, but the biggest connection goes on from 0 to 2. And that's when there's a massive opportunity to shape our child's brain. Now, this doesn't stop. In fact, we can shape brains until, well, the day we die. We can make different connections and we can make new connections in our brain forever. So no more excuses about, oh, I'm just too old to learn Russian or Mandarin. We can all do it. It just gets harder as we get older. And a time when the brain is going through another massive reconnecting and sorting out is in the teenage brain. Now, what we know in the early years is, let me get this around the right way, this is what the very early years looks like in terms of connections in the brain. So in the beginning, not many connections, gradually increasing, and the very, very connected bit is actually only a 2-year-old's brain, which I found quite shocking the first time I saw this slide, and I now use it with parents when I work with them and also in my training, because it really makes you think. So there's this rapid growth going on in a child's brain, and it carries on. And by the time that they get to early puberty, the brain needs to, well, sort itself out really and become more streamlined for adult thinking. Because if we're going to operate in the adult world, we have to have a quicker brain that can get to the point a lot faster than a younger child's brain. So what goes on in the brain is like a massive gardening, pruning process. It starts in early puberty, so nowadays that can be as young as 9 or 10. And different areas of the brain are worked on at different times. So it starts at the back of the brain, and then it gradually moves forwards to the very front of the brain. And this is, I hate to tell you, a long process. So it can last into late 20s, early 30s, which will mean that different areas of the brain may be under construction at different times. So bits being taken away and bits being made faster and cemented in. So what can this look like? In a teenager, it can mean that at some times you might get just a grunt from them, or they might not seem to be able to listen to anything you say, remember anything you say, or they might be quite reactive to just an innocent inquiry from you about something. You can be sure that as hard as it feels for you, it also feels really hard for your teenager. They're suddenly losing that connection with you. They don't know how to feel and be around you anymore, which is pretty much how we often feel when we're raising them. So we end up mirroring each other's discomfort. But for me, understanding that actually a lot of it is just purely down to their brain, it's in chaos, bits of it just aren't working very well, really helps me be around teenagers and continue to keep that connection with them and see the very best in them. That hasn't gone away, it's just they're finding it really difficult at the moment, which can often trigger things in us. So be reassured, it's not that you'll suddenly become a rubbish parent, and it's not that your child is suddenly turning into some really unpleasant person and it's all going to go horribly wrong and they're not going to do very well in life. It's just a phase, it's just what's going on in their brain. And what they really need more than anything is your kindness and your understanding. So they don't need endless consequences, they don't need to feel bad about themselves. What they need is some insight into how they might be feeling and how you might be feeling. So conversations with them about, when I came in your room yesterday, it felt as if you might have thought that I was really cross with you. I wonder what that was about. I wonder what was going on for you. Now, the chances are that if that part of their brain is under construction, they won't have a lot to say back. So you could just drop in, I wonder if you were just feeling a bit tired or a bit worried that I was coming in to nag you about something. It doesn't matter if you're right or wrong, but at least you've offered a kindly explanation for the reaction you've got. And then you can explain, it made me feel a bit anxious as well, actually. And maybe I need to find a different way to come in your room, or what can we do as a plan? How can we work this out? Because I am going to need to come in sometimes and ask you things. So maybe we can make a plan together. It always feels better for anybody to be worked with rather than done to. And at this time of chaos in the teenage brain, it's never more important to show kindness, compassion, and to try and work with them. I know it's not easy, but remember that brain is going through a very chaotic period. A really good book for you and your teenager is this one by Nicola Morgan. Now, they probably won't want to read all of it, but you could maybe read bits and then chat them through with your teenager, and at least it will give you more insight. And I always feel once I understand something, then I can explain it and I can live with it just better. So good luck, do take care of yourselves as well, and you'll get through it, and so will your child.